Welcome to The Inside Track, where we talk all things health, healthcare and medical insurance. Brought to you by TRA and our team of Warren, Alan and Doc Avron. Let's sit back and see what our team has for us today.
Hi everyone, and we're back for another episode of our podcast. In fact, the response to our first podcast is so good. It's just amazing the response we've had, and we're very excited about this ongoing series. In today's edition, we're going to hear a lot on the medical side, and we're going to hear from Alan regarding a bit of the consolidation of our healthcare industry, and I will give a couple of pointers regarding the myths going around about gap cover. But for me, the important thing is really to hear what Dr. Avron has to tell us. Over to you.
Great. Warren, Alan, so happy to be here. And yes, our response has been fantastic. So we're loving the engagement. And just to say to our listeners, if they want to engage with us, they want to ask any medical questions, any medical topics that they want us to cover, they should actually just email us, and they can email me directly at askdravron@totalrisksa.co.za. It's
Great.
Ask Dr. Avron at totalrisksa.co.za.
You should see the address popping up on your screen now,
Great.
just to confirm that. So, yeah, that's excellent.
And
we encourage people to engage. That's what we're here for.
Exactly.
Great.
But very exciting that we know that injectable weight loss medications are actually the big topic and the trending topic. And I'm sure on social media all around, our listeners are seeing Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, all these medications. And there's a lot of questions that the person out there has. You know, when should I use it? What are the indications? Does my medical aid pay? What are the risks associated and the costs? And just say that I'm very excited. I got to interview one of the experts in South Africa on this field, Dr. Charlene Welberg. And I managed to get an interview with her. And this is what she had to say.
And for our listeners here, what exactly are these weight loss injections that we keep hearing about? As I said, spoken all around social media, celebrities, dinner tables, etc. What are we actually talking about here?
So the big group under which they all fall, I always say it's an umbrella, and these molecules are brothers and sisters under the umbrella. They are all GLP-1 agonists, okay? And to put it simply, they basically have synthesized, they have artificially manufactured a naturally occurring hormone, peptide, that is actually released from our gut after we eat and goes centrally to certain appetite centers in our brain and increase our feelings of fullness, and also help us in terms of emotional aspects of eating. And then they also have various positive effects on multiple other organs in the body. It's important to note that at this point in time, they are registered for both type 2 diabetes and for weight loss. Okay? It's often it's the same molecule, but it's just different dosages that are used. So currently, there's only one weight loss molecule that's registered for use in South Africa, and that is liraglutide Saxenda. However, hot off the press, Ozempic, which is actually the molecule for type 2 diabetes, its weight loss counterpart, Wegovy, which is the exact same molecule but used in a much higher dose, has been registered by the Health Professions Council and basically is going to be launched. The big launch is in August. So we're looking forward to that.
So that's great news to hear. I mean, and we'll talk about that. So Ozempic and Wegovy are the same thing, just to explain for our listeners.
Yes.
Ozempic was registered for type 2 diabetes. Wegovy, the exact same thing, is now registered for weight loss.
Yes.
We've got Saxenda, which is registered for weight loss. We are also hearing about Mounjaro.
Yes.
That people are using in South Africa. Is that also registered for weight loss?
So it's the same story. So Mounjaro, which we have now available in South Africa, is actually registered for type 2 diabetes. The exact same molecule, but in a higher dose, called Zepbound, is the weight loss version, which we again are awaiting.
which will also be registered. In other words, there are three options for individuals. Well, it seems in South Africa for weight loss, if I can say it like that, even if it would be Saxenda, it would be Ozempic stroke Wegovy, and then Manjaro.
Yeah, off-label Manjaro.
Yes, fine.
Right.
Okay, so that's really what's available. And Charlene, in your experience, has this been is it a stepwise jump from what was available previously in terms of weight loss for individuals?
Okay, it's basically a leap, a leap to the moon kind of.
Yes,
That's
yes.
how big a leap it is. Okay.
Right.
So now we have something chronic to offer patients, so that not only will they be able to lose weight, but they will be able to maintain that weight loss and then keep those health benefits. Yeah.
Right. So here's the $1 million question, Charlene. Are these injections actually who they actually meant for? Is it just for people who want to lose a few kilos, or they're significantly overweight? Who should be using these types of injections?
Yeah. So the criteria for use is actually the same across the board for all weight loss medications. So it's still defined as they use body mass index, which is actually sort of phasing out. But basically, it's your body mass index, which is your weight in kilos divided by your height in meters squared. And if that is greater than 27, and you have one more comorbidity, so a disease state associated with obesity, so for example, high cholesterol or high blood pressure or insulin resistance or sleep apnea, then you would qualify to use one of the GLP-1s. Or if you just had a body mass index of above 30, you would qualify to use one of these GLP-1s. However, saying this, it's still up to the discretion of the clinician, because not everybody falls exactly into black and white criteria. So we have to look at the patient as a whole, take into account family history, lifestyle, dieting history, social, emotional. So there's a lot of factors that have to be taken into account. And ultimately, it's the clinician's discretion.
So if I'm not significantly overweight, or an individual's not significantly overweight, and I just want to use this to lose a few kilos, and I don't have a BMI greater than 27, as you said, can I still use this? And would it be a long-term? Would I have to be on it for long term?
So these weight loss medications are the same as any weight loss as any other medications. So, for example, if you're taking your antihypertensive, which is lowering your blood pressure, it works while you are taking it, and when you stop it, it doesn't work. Okay, so these medications are treating the symptoms of a disease. They're not going in and manipulating your genetic predisposition and your socioeconomic. So they will artificially lower your weight to a new set point and artificially hold it at that set point while you're using them. If you go off them, you'll go straight back to where you were previously. And it's even a little bit more complex with weight, in that our normal physiological response is to preserve ourselves. So as soon as you start deviating from your original weight, which your body perceives as a happy weight, a safe weight, which by the way is the highest weight you've ever been, it perceives it as a state of starvation. And so what it does then is it starts sending out these hunger signals in an attempt for you to go and take in more food to try and increase that weight. And also it lowers what we call our basal metabolic rate in an attempt to hold onto those stores more tightly. And that's with or without the medication. It's a normal physiological response of the body. So when I have patients coming in and they say to me, oh, we just need a quick jump start to lose the first 10 kilos and then we'll be fine. Well, I've got bad and sad news for you.
Yes.
These are not jumpstart medications. There perhaps are others that you can use, which again, but that's not what they indicated for. And you need to know when you start them that they are chronic medications. Okay.
So it's a long-term, for the individual who need it, it's a long-term therapy, right? With your higher BMIs, etc. What would your answer be for someone who just said they don't have that high BMI above 27, they just want to lose a few kilos? Would you say rather don't go into that and rather try the traditional diet, exercise, etc. before you do it?
Yeah. Okay. So that is a tricky question in that it's going to depend largely on the patient. So it would depend. I would take into account the patient's genetics, their previous diet history, and say even their predisposition to developing certain disease conditions. But I would tell the patient that you will lose your 10 kilos, but you cannot suddenly go off the medication. We would have to taper off very slowly. And your lifestyle modification has to really be in place, okay? And then we would give the patients a trial off the medication and see what happens. There are a minority of patients who actually do maintain their weight, and we can't predict beforehand who that is.
It's not static, it's dynamic, and you'll have to reassess it at different periods. But one thing which I'm hearing from you can't do it in isolation. You need to have lifestyle modifications together with the injection therapy, which is diet and exercise, right?
That is beyond essential. Essential. And patients do not understand that. Because unfortunately, you will see the weight loss with eating smaller portions of rubbish food throughout the day. Okay. But the issues come in for two aspects. So the one thing is obviously we want patients to develop healthier eating patterns. The aim of the medications is just to enable patients to put those lifestyle changes into practice. That's what they're meant to be doing with dietary changes, helping you with portion sizes. They actually, in terms of the GLP-1s, they change your hedonic relationship and your taste and with food. So some patients actually will come in and say, I actually feel like eating fresh fruit and more healthier options as opposed to, the highly ultra-processed foods. So many of these sessions that we attended at this Congress were devoted to the nutritional requirements that need to accompany these drugs, because what happens is that with decreased intake, what we see in patients is that their protein intake decreases significantly. So patients have to keep their protein intake up, and they also need to do resistance, weight training with it to make sure that you're not losing your muscle mass, and the same kind of issue with bone mineral density.
Right. The cost, right? The cost of these medications. Why are they so costly, A? And B, and this would be on our listeners' minds, etc., are medical aids paying for them?
Okay, so in terms of the diabetes, so the would be the Victoza, would be the Ozempic, the Mounjaro. So in terms of type 2 diabetes, what I understand is that you need to have been on 2 older drugs and failed on those 2 older drugs before they will consider covering. But there are definitely many patients who the drug is covered. In terms of weight loss is still considered cosmetic. Bang your head against a wall.
Yes. And I'm sure you are, right? Because you know the fact, and it's classified as a disease. It should be being treated, right?
And this is all over the world, the argument.
Yes.
So it's not only limited to us, but they are not covered by medical aids. I know patients who are using them. It sometimes comes out of their savings, but they're not covered. So the only people that would be covered are the actual type 2 diabetics.
Type 2 diabetics.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you're looking at, am I right, somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 rand a month? Is that a correct estimate?
Yeah, I probably, probably around.
Okay. So it is expensive, right?
They are
So it is expensive. And because of that, and we found that medical aids aren't, unless you're a diabetic who's tried other medication, you actually really need to give it some thought, and you need to speak to a professional. And that's probably the last point that I actually want to chat to you about, because when we started off, there's so much in social media, there's so much misinformation here, and people just talk about this. How should a person saying who maybe feels they fall into this category, either being being a diabetic or being significantly overweight or overweight at all, how should they approach this? Approach this topic? Should they be speaking to professionals like themselves before they make any decisions?
It's actually very difficult. So really, what's happening is that their patient's first port of call is always their general practitioner. The problem is the limiting time that the general practitioner has with the patient, first of all. And then many general practitioners don't actually, if they're not vested interest in it, they don't actually fully understand these GLP-1s, and often will give scripts without all the rest. And, it's a lot of sort of misuse of the GLP-1s.
So what we're saying is it's a specialist field, right? Not every GP knows about it. And I think as a potential patient out there, you should do your research on who you're going to speak
100%,
to understand
100%.
it. Because
even amongst endocrinologists,
yes,
some have more of an interest than others do. So you need to do your homework before, and then you will get the best advice and the best treatment plan. I think,
Thanks so much, Dr. Charlene Welberg, for helping us understand the real story behind these weight loss medications, what they are, how they work, and what to consider before starting them. If you're thinking about starting these treatments, the first step, as Charlene mentioned, is always a conversation with a doctor who specializes in this field. These medications can be powerful tools, but they aren't one size fits all. And thanks to all of you for listening to the TRA Health and Wellness podcast. If you found this helpful, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, send in some future questions or topics you'd like to be covered, and share it with someone who might benefit. Thank you and goodbye.
Wow, that I think we can all agree that was an amazing interview. Thanks, Doc Avron, for organizing that, and we got to really, chat with one of the experts. So, and I think you've answered a lot of questions there. I think now we're going to ask Alan to give us a little bit of information about the healthcare industry.
Thank you, Warren. Good afternoon, Dr. Avron. Good afternoon, Warren. Good afternoon to you, our listeners. It's a very important topic today in terms of what's happening in the industry, why we see this consolidation. And fundamentally, our problem in private healthcare is within the risk pool of private healthcare. The risk pool has been staying static for about, give or take, since 1998, about around 9 million odd. Why are younger members not joining the medical scheme? Well, the Medical Schemes Act of 1998 was designed around social health, and that's the fundamental of our problem. We have private health in the industry, driven by a social act, compounded, in my view, by another piece of legislation, and that's a National Health Insurance Act. When we started off with the Medical Schemes Act and the medical schemes that were in the industry, at that point, if we cast our mind back, there were about 20 years or so, there was about 146 medical schemes were in the country. The schemes then faced quite a bit of hardship in terms of no new members joining medical schemes, the age profile just escalating and becoming older. And Doc Avron will share with you, as we age, every year our claims ratio would go up about 2 to 2.5%. And that's where the fundamental problem lies. Now, the Act was designed to introduce risk equalization. And risk equalization basically means where a medical scheme has got a higher claims ratio and another medical scheme has a lower claims ratio, there will be an equalization in terms of funds. So one scheme will pay over or benefit from the risk equalization fund and so sustain the medical scheme. This never happened in our industry for a number of reasons. But just to come back to the consolidation, 140 schemes. We have today about 15 open schemes, about 45 closed schemes, and clear indication that the Act does not support the healthcare, private healthcare industry, nor does the public sector being supported the way it should. And we are now faced with a member at the end of the day whose medical scheme's premium is escalating beyond a inflation, what we call healthcare inflation, hovering around 3.5% above headline inflation, is a problem for our industry. So what does that tell us? Of course, the private healthcare membership of medical schemes are going to dwindle. To sustain medical schemes, the only way is to cut benefits and to increase premium. Unaffordable in terms of where we find ourselves. The solution lies in increasing the risk pool of private health.
Correct.
And just to reiterate on that, so for our listeners to understand, as the population gets older, the reserve ratios get worse, right, for the medical scheme?
It does get worse, but it gets worse because the claims ratio gets worse.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, Dr. Everon, if every year we age, our claims ratio would go up. But a bigger problem, which is also a topic for another day, and most probably where you sit in terms of being a medical practitioner, is the burden of disease in our country.
So effectively, I mean, it's not a quick fix. In fact, for us, there's a lot of topics to unpack in weeks to come. So we look forward to doing that.
Thanks.
I think from our side, just as a closing bit, and it links to what we've been talking about this afternoon, is with this extra, the burden of disease, the burden of the extra finance implications of hospitalization in our country today. It leads us to answer some of those myths about gap cover. There's a big question that we get where someone will say, I'm on a comprehensive medical aid. I pay a lot of money for it, yet if I go into hospital, I still have a shortfall. Why is this? So, in simple terms, the difference between medical aid rates, which is the rate at which your medical aid will refund you, and the rate at which your practitioner is charging you, that is widening. And where does that leave the consumer? Where does that leave our viewers? Effectively, you have to fund those shortfalls out of your pocket. And that's one of the myths of gap cover. Even though you're on a fantastic medical aid, there's still a chance that you might have a shortfall when you go into hospitalization, when you go into hospital or having a hospitalization event. That's where gap cover fits in. It's an insurance product, and it's designed to cover that gap between what your medical aid refunds and what you're charged by a practitioner. So
if I could just add in for our listeners, is that the cost for a gap cover is relatively small compared to the medical aid.
Correct,
so you get actually quite extensive benefit to get that gap cover in place.
Sure.
It's a really minimal amount in terms of the costs that will give you that peace of mind and cover, because that differential can be very significant when you get admitted into hospital.
Just the second myth that we want to sort of debunk regarding gap cover, a lot of people will phone us and say they have primary health care or another insurance type product. Can they take out gap cover? And the simple answer is no, because in terms of regulation, and we broadly call it the demarcation regulations, it allows us as an insurer to provide a product, but it is specific in that we can provide that product provided you're on a registered medical aid product as registered with the Council for Medical Schemes. So it doesn't help that you're on a private or a primary healthcare type insurance vehicle. You have to be on a registered medical aid with the Council for Medical Schemes. And if you're on that type product and there's a shortfall, then we're able to pay your claim. So just debunking a couple of those myths. I think we've had some great information on your side, Doc. Listening to Dr. Wahlberg, I think was fantastic. We've heard from Ellen regarding the state of our healthcare industry, and there's so much to unpack regarding that as well. And we'll continue to give you to debunk the myths regarding gap cover and give you product information. As usual, at this time, there's only one way we end the show, and that's to hand over to our friend Gappy. Before we do, remember the address. If you've got any medical questions, you'll see the address is appearing on the screen now. Ask Dr. Avron at totalrisksa.co.za, and really we want to hear from you. But as we say, we'll hand over to Gappy now, and looking forward to chatting to you again.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks.
Don't stress, the gap is covered.
Well, there we go. Thank you to the TRA team and to you for watching The Inside Track. Until next time, bye for now.